I'm Mark Seifter.
And I'm Linda Zayas Palmer.
And this is Arcane Mark.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Arcane Mark.
Welcome
Today,
to Build a Victory Point Subsystem
a
Workshop.
Victory Point Subsystem in a workshop.
Yes. So, there is, in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, for those of you who are new, just coming into Pathfinder 2e, want to check things out, a Victory Point Subsystem rule set in the Game Mastery Guide. It's on page 148. It's kind of the way that the Chapter 3 subsystem starts, because many of the subsystems in that chapter are, in fact, Victory Point subsystems that are built using the Victory Point Subsystem Toolkit. So, with that in mind, we asked our viewers to come up with, in advance, all sorts of ideas for Victory Point subsystems that you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
We'd like you to put any of those in chat, and then we will be making Victory Point subsystems based on what you vote for in chat, just to show we can do it. We don't have any advanced knowledge of any of this, but we can do it on the fly using the rules for Victory Points from the Game Mastery Guide.
So while folks are putting concepts into the chat, let's talk a little bit more about what a Victory Point subsystem is.
That's right, because if you're just watching this now, you might not know exactly what we mean. So it basically is some kind of non-combat like situation that is still sort of an encounters-esque style where PCs will take turns, and sometimes their opposition, but usually not, will take turns doing a thing. And so it's time management where you need to decide what thing you're going to do. Sometimes it's so simple that you don't have a choice. You just have a choice of what skill you're going to use to do the one thing that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be on whatever scope you want. Like when I said that, you probably pictured like you're in a situation and I don't know, you need to do something right away. Like you need to build walls because zombies are going to attack right now. But you can also have a Victory Point subsystem that is in the background throughout your entire campaign, where every decision you make and certain actions that you take slowly, like each session, maybe there's one chance to earn victory points, and then all the way at the end, the victory points determine like how your entire country does or something like that. Victory point subsystems work at any scope, at any scale.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, when we build a Victory Point subsystem, we're not going to go into the nitty-gritty details of all of the results. We're going to build the overall system. So we've got an idea here, which is wedding planning and directing. Prep phase for the wedding, and then an active phase for the wedding. Okay, the funny thing about that, a Ninja Slayer, is that the Victory Point subsystem we could use as a starting point for that, which I think is also hilarious, that is the one that's closest to wedding, is heists. Right? Because it has a prep phase and an active phase.
We have a cooking contest, we have a fishing contest.
Yeah, cooking contest, a fishing contest. Hex Reconnoiter, replacing the Hexploration Reconnoiter activity. So, like, a new subsystem.
A meta subsystem within a subsystem.
Yes, because there is a Hexploration subsystem, but in that subsystem, the Reconnoiter activity is very simple. And you kind of just do it, and it takes, I think, longer to get through the area if you're reconnoitering, but then... yeah, it takes longer to get...
surveying the area. So it's a subsystem about surveying an area.
It takes, it takes a number of activities equal to the number of travel activities to traverse the hex. So essentially twice as much in total, and then you get to survey. So the idea is to replace that with another meta subsystem.
All right, we got 4 ideas already. Awesome.
Yes, that's great.
So with Victory Point subsystems, generally the idea is that people are rolling checks, and their checks are going to be either based on the results, gaining or losing points, victory points for the team as a whole, and then you track those points throughout.
Nin the Noodle wants to see Blades in the Dark style wedding, where you run a wedding in Blades in the Dark with flashbacks to prevent the
solving a murder mystery.
Okay, that's hilarious, though. I actually really think you could run a wedding in Blades in the Dark if you changed like what the basic skills are in Blades in the Dark, because only a certain number of skills would be useful to like wedding-based skills, where, you know, you do have a complication. It's like I don't know, the groom is just in a tizzy and just being a groomzilla and just running around, yelling at people, and then it flashes back to where and then it flashes back to where you dosed a sedative into into a glass of water, and then you hand the glass of water to the groom, and it's just like, oh.
It's like the families from hell, where like everyone has all these things going on.
Yes.
You take stress.
Yes, that was the next thing I was going to say, Ninja Slayer, which is that stress is the thing you take in Blades of the Dark, and also during wedding planning. And
oh my goodness.
And then I guess after the wedding, you have to go indulge in your vice because it's just like to remove your stress.
Oh my god.
Gosh. Okay, so we aren't doing weddings for Blades of the Dark in this episode, but like maybe we should do an episode where we do weddings for Blades in the Dark, or a Blade in the Dark, Blades of the Dark style wedding, Forged in the Dark wedding actual play.
Oh my god.
Because I guess at the point where we redid the skills, it would be Forged in the Dark,
yeah,
not Blades in the Dark, but whatever.
Folks want that, they can suggest it at the end when we talk about episode 8.
Anyway, we've got some good ideas here, and I went off on a riff that would allow people to have more time to put ideas in chat, and we got the murder mystery. So why don't we see which one you guys like? So
vote for your favorite.
Vote, put a number 1 through 5 for that indicates your favorite one of these options, and then we will do that subsystem.
See what people vote for.
Yes. Let's see.
1.
We have 1 vote for wedding planning. We have 2. 1 vote for cooking contest. There's
5.
a 5. 1 vote for solving a murder mystery. Another vote for wedding. Another vote for wedding. Another vote for wedding.
I think wedding's got it.
Okay, well, we can put the Blades in the Dark wedding on hold because we're doing a Pathfinder 2 wedding.
Alright, here we go.
Alright, so here at Arcade Mark, Linda and I are going to have a Pathfinder 2 wedding subsystem.
Okay.
So
like you mentioned, heist could be a good starting point for how we get into this.
Yeah, no, heists legitimately are a decent starting point for weddings because of the fact that they have a planning phase and they have an infiltration. Sorry, an infiltration. A planning phase followed by an active phase.
Yes,
and the active phases are kind of like a wedding in that, like, there's certain obstacles that you come across during the active phase, such as the groom who's going on a rampage.
Yeah. So the full infiltration system would also have awareness points that are like something that is something that's building up because you're being noticed.
I think that the wedding does have a point system like that would be building up, except for the difference is that because you are the wedding planners and you're probably not the clients in this one, the PCs have for some reason been hired to plan a wedding. Now, I'm going to actually ask chat about this because it will influence how many different kinds of points we have. So chat, I need you to vote between 2 options, unless Linda tells me that there should be a 3rd option. Option 1, the PCs have just been hired to plan a wedding. Why are they just planning a regular wedding that's important? Maybe it's like high-class people. That's option 1. Option 2 is that the reason the PCs have been hired to plan the wedding, and it's the PCs who may be like heroic characters, is because there's some expectation of a dangerous thing that might happen. Like, it's the wedding between the princess and a princess from a neighboring kingdom, and there's like discontents within the neighboring kingdom who want to start a war by interrupting the marriage, and so the PCs are also doing every step of the planning because they are secretly security in addition to wedding planning. So, is it that the PCs are just wedding planners, or are they secretly security as well as wedding planners? Because there could be more types of points that you have to get if you're also secretly security. So, we've got secretly security, just wedding planners.
And then both, I think,
both is secretly security.
Yeah. Or maybe it's asking us to do both systems. Or I don't know.
No, I think both means two. That they are both planning a wedding and Faceless Man Tony says that even the bride doesn't know that that there's this faction that might disrupt the wedding. Maybe like the parents or something, but it doesn't matter that much. Who knows? I guess it does matter that the bride doesn't know, because you also want to keep the bride from figuring it out. Okay. Elftro is still deciding whether it's a normal wedding that you're planning for, or you're planning for the wedding that might be disrupted, and that's why you have these like PCs.
If like say the bride doesn't know, then that might imply that there's like actually sort of multiple things going on, in that you have and that you want to not be caught by the people who don't know. You want to make your presence.
Yes. That even if both brides know, or whatever, then you still would not want the assassins or instigators to know that you know. Alright, so, people are saying 2, although they had a little bit of trouble choosing.
So we can also, why don't we do 2 and then talk about how it would be different if we
can talk about what we would remove. Yeah, so, yeah, our thought is you were hired by, like, the king to do this protection, and it's important. The king wants to keep it as close to the vest as possible, so nobody actually knows, other than, and also is because of the fact that the king's spy master knows. She has determined that, there are elements in both kingdoms who want to start a war for profiteering, and those elements have infiltrated the royal guard as well.
Yeah.
So they can't tell the royal guard, because then they don't know which people in the royal guard are involved. So one of the assets you have is that the spy master and her people are definitely not leaking, or if they have, then you're already in trouble, because those are trusted. But they work in the shadows. They might not be good at fighting. They're not out in the front, but they will be a group of assets that are going to assist us in planning the wedding. But the PCs are going to have to be the wedding planners. They're going to have to actually directly do it, even if the spies could be helpful, because they don't want to be seen. The spies don't want to be out there seen, and the PCs need to be seen doing something that isn't like protecting the princesses, so that it's not obvious that someone has hired.
So that suggests
the PCs to protect the princesses.
that so there may be kind of like a resource that assists from the spy master that you have a limited number of. That you
I
can
think
spend
so
during
too.
this.
So you're going to have some spy master assists. And I think that the spy master assists are actually going to, if we do it like an infiltration, they're going to take the place of edge points, or whatever those are called. I can't remember. That we rewrote the infiltration rules like a million times.
Yeah,
they are called edge points. So I think that the preparation phase for the wedding is not actually an infiltration preparation phase, because during the time we're preparing the wedding, we're actually actively in danger of being figured out or causing issues by the enemies too. So because of the type of wedding that we made. Now, if we were just doing a simple wedding, perhaps the preparation phase is where it would be safe-ish, and we would earn our edge points there. But here, we're just going to start with a number of edge points based on the amount that the spies are able to help us. Now, edge points are resources that are advantages that can be brought up during the wedding. And they will allow you to, when you fail a critically failed check to overcome an obstacle or complication, you can spend an edge point to succeed instead. Some edge points can be spent only during particular circumstances. For instance, no matter how well you forge documents, it won't help you unlock a door. So in this case, if the spies wouldn't be able to help you, because let's say that one of the two brides is just, I don't know, really fussing about the decorations, and the spies aren't going to be able to come out there and talk to her about that, or else they would just be seen, so they wouldn't be able to help you with edge points. whereas they would be able to help you
Mm-hmm.
in other situations. So it seems like there's a question from the chat of the wedding out of love, or is it to bring powerful families together? So that is a good question. What we know from the setup is that at least there are factions in both kingdoms
Mm-hmm.
that don't want it to happen because they want there to be war and strife. So at the very least, even if it started out of love, it will be having the effect to bring these nations into a more peaceful relationship with each other. So there's some element of diplomacy involved in this wedding that regardless of how it started, and in chat you can say what you think or what you like about that situation. It may or may not influence exactly what we're going to do when we set up this subsystem.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're building an entire subsystem here, that doesn't mean we're going to build every last detail of an iteration of the subsystem. We're going to make the, like, spy danger political wedding
Yes.
intrigue subsystem.
So, like you were saying, during that preparation phase, you are unlike in the infiltration system. You start with edge points just flat out, and then you are in danger of being figured out while you're preparing. Do the preparations also generate what advantages?
So
the
I think that this wedding that we've described here, and I put it upon myself somewhat, and by suggesting that it could have this secondary reason, right? But this particular subsystem we're building is probably going to have a ton of different kinds of points.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's going to be so many different conditions in the end of what happened. Like, you could have a situation where, like, I don't know, you threw the best wedding ever, but you were sussed out by the bad guys, and maybe the wedding was really great, but, like, the brides, one of the brides was just, like, their psychological state was bad. So, I feel like that you have several different tracks. You have wedding points, which you build up during the preparations, and they go down during the wedding. And these wedding points determine, like, whether or not, like, the wedding goes off well. The guests are like, wow, that was a really good wedding. It was very fancy, and there was great food, and everything was going well. So during the prep phase, you build up, and during the because victory point systems, if you look at the rules for victory point subsystems, they can either go up or down. We're doing something more complicated than that. So we're going to give us one phase where we build it up, and one where it can only go down during the event, because your plans are never going to go exactly the way that you want.
So then this determines both the guest experience as well as sort of the public perception of the event, because the public perception of the event is important for political stability.
That's correct. So that's what the wedding points are for. Now, there's also probably 2 victory point tracks, one each for each of, like, the brides, especially if this is a marriage that is, people ask, like, is it a political marriage, is it a marriage of love? Like, maybe it's some mix of the two. Maybe one of the brides is really into the other bride, and the other bride is more like, I'm doing this for the family, it's my duty to do this. And maybe, like, the kingdom that's slightly more powerful is the princess who really likes the other princess, and that was part of it as well. And so maybe that princess who really is into the other princess is easier to please with the wedding in general, but is more upset when it gets messed up by the bad guys or things like that. Whereas the other princess is just more flat out reticent, and you kind of have to psych her up, but she doesn't mind things that happen to the wedding as much. So they each have different ways that their princess points might increase or decrease. Where the one who's already got a good number of princess points, but then every little thing that goes wrong, every time you lose wedding points, for example, like, her princess points could go down, and you might, in that case, there could be an activity where this is time management based. So during the prep phase, you can decide where you're assigning the PCs. It probably be generally assumed that any tasks that you just flat out don't do that the spies somehow get the bare minimum of that done,
Yeah.
but you don't build up wedding points for it. And then one of the tasks you can have is basically like going to talk to one of the princesses. And
so
so
tasks in the
after
planning phase can build wedding points, bride A points, or bride B points.
yes, so I would say that in general during the planning phase, probably the main one that let's say bride A is the one who's really enthusiastic about the wedding. Bride B is the one who is like, I'm doing this for the family.
Yeah.
So bride A is one who maybe like comes along while you're doing the other actions during the planning phase, and that you don't have to spend time with any of your characters on her unless you critically fail during the planning phase, in which case she gets upset that you critically failed during the planning phase to set things up because you lost a wedding point. Or actually, that could just be the rule for her, so it's simple throughout the time.
Yeah.
Bride A, whenever you lose a wedding point, including a critical failure in the planning phase. So let me back up for a minute.
Yeah.
Victory point subsystems, as described in the Game Mastery Guide, work as followed in general when you're building them up. You roll a check of some difficulty. On a critical success, you gain 2 points. On a success, you gain 1 point. On a failure, nothing happens, and on a critical failure, you lose a point. Okay? When you're on the version of a victory point that's diminishing, on a critical success, you might regain a point only if it's possible. Like if you have eggs that are cracking, they're not going to get uncracked by critical success. In a wedding, you actually probably can critically succeed during the diminishing phase and get the wedding to be thought of better.
Yeah.
Where like it's like, oh no, we didn't have enough food. But I cooked this ridiculous dish. In my bag of holding, I happen to have some dragon meat that we were going to keep for ourselves, but I cooked some of that, and we got, whoa, they were holding back because they had dragon meat. So you probably should be able to regain a victory point, at least in some of the checks.
So then,
a diminishing, on a critical success, you might gain a victory point if it's possible on that check. On a success, you don't lose any. On a failure, you lose 1, and on a critical failure, you lose 2. So Princess A, anytime you lose a victory point by either failing or critically failing on diminishing, or by critically failing when you're gaining victory points, Princess A gets upset because her wedding with the love of her life just got messed up by this person. And so you are at risk of losing princess points with Princess A, who starts with a lot of them.
Then you can't gain Princess A points in any way. Princess A starts with a lot of points.
She's already really happy, and if you just don't if everything goes fine, then she's on cloud 9. So she's diminishing. Maybe you can gain a point if you critically succeed with her, because here's the thing: you don't just immediately lose her points. On the next phase, you need to assign someone to no, Princess A, it's gonna be okay. And they roll a diminishing roll on Princess A's points. And if they get a critical success, then they can, I don't know, Emperor's New Clothes her into thinking that it was actually better. It's like, nah, you'll just have a really unique and exciting wedding. Did you want it to just be boring for such a once-in-a-lifetime event? And let's see. Now, now that we're talking about that, Ninja Slayer is saying reticent princess doesn't necessarily care much about the wedding points. Nin the Noodle says that though she probably does care about prestige enough that she doesn't want her family to look bad. That's probably true. Ninja Slayer says maybe she actually caught wind of the situation and cares about your security points. Now that's possible as well. That's a very interesting twist on it, whereas Enthusiastic Princess doesn't know about the security points, so she doesn't care about that. We can do that. Actually, I like that. Let's do a vote. I'm gonna put this in here.
Yeah,
so
put that in while I'm updating this sheet.
So the vote is between for a vote for 1 if we should be psyching Princess B up for her points. So you're helping her, you're talking to her about this the situation and using your PC diplomacy abilities because she already wasn't that enthusiastic. For 2, Princess B knows about security risks, and so she gets upset by security, but 3 is both. So, and yeah, I agree with Ninja Noodle that the Princess A's so set up to be disappointed that her hype levels only can really go down unless you critically succeed on the diminishing checks. So they're pretty much they're pretty much guaranteed to go down, but you just don't want them to get down below a certain threshold, because how excited she is at the start, as long as she's just around there, by the end, she's still going to love the event.
Yes.
Alright, so we have 1 vote for 3, where both psyching her up, and she knows about the security risk. Elf has voted for just psyching her up. She doesn't know about the security risk. That was something you have to keep a secret from both of them. Alright, so any other votes from chat about which thing we should be doing with Princess B? A vote for 2. She only knows about the security risk,
I do want to point out, when
up.
you're making your own subsystem, you don't have to make it this complicated.
Yeah, this is way more complicated than any subsystem, except for the one that Steven made Linda create for Jewel of the Indigo Isles.
Yep.
And some of the ones in the back of the Kingmaker AP. Alright, so another 3 for both. So, it seems like in total it's spread out. Oh, there's another one for just security risks. Alright, let's see if we can get one more vote.
They break the tie between 2 and 3.
Princess B in this royal wedding, does she know about the security risks and she gets antsy when the PCs blow their cover? Does she not know about the security risks, but she kind of is not as enthusiastic about the wedding, and so doing cool wedding stuff and maybe talking to her could psych her up, or both? We have a change for a vote from 3 to 2. So, okay. We are going to say that the princess...
So we can't build Princess B points in the beginning. We can't
build Princess B points by psyching her up in the beginning. She only is worried about security risk. So that's going to make it so that's going to be interesting. So in that case, Princess B just starts at a lower place. And for Princess A, she's always going to be like, well, she got married to the woman of her dreams, but she could get upset that you messed up her wedding.
So the King of B should be Princess B, and King B, Princess B, and Spy Master B all know about this issue.
Yes. In fact, maybe you were actually hired by Kingdom B.
Yes.
The kingdom that... and maybe Kingdom A doesn't really know as much about the issue for the event. Whereas, let's see, if Kingdom A is the more powerful kingdom with the enthusiastic princess, then this makes it a really complicated, fun situation because it's probably being held by Kingdom A. So you need to be plotting security with the spies from Kingdom B, but it's not even in their own kingdom. So that is even better reason why you can't why they can't trust the guards, because they're the guards from Kingdom A. And the war faction maybe is strong in Kingdom A, and they're like, well, we're stronger, we could win, why don't we attack Kingdom B? And they might be in the Royal Guard.
Yeah.
So Kingdom B just hasn't actually told anyone in Kingdom A, and therefore that's why there's a limit to what their spies can do, because they're not even in their own kingdom, and it's gonna look like they're messing up the wedding if they do too much. So,
yeah, and if they try to tell the King A, then King A may just be like, you're accusing my guards of trying to cause this, and then that would cause the political situation anyway. So they have to make sure this wedding goes off well without the factional conflict.
Right.
And also, if they get caught knowing this but not having told King A is going to be really mad.
That's right.
Queen A is going to be really mad that they did that. Yeah.
Yep. So, King and Queen A.
Rulers A.
Rulers A. So, in that case, let's think about this situation a little more. So, we know that we can't really psych up Princess B. So, maybe just Princess B is at a lower point than Princess A, and that's okay. But but the security concerns can really give Princess B an ulcer.
So, we have wedding points, Princess A points, Princess B points, and security points?
Yes. And basically, anytime you lose security points, Princess B like gets really anxious, and so you will also lose Princess B points unless you go talk to Princess B on a diminishing victory point roll. So you may be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, Mark didn't say what happens if you don't go talk to the princess during that time. But we can follow the rules for victory point subsystems of when you refuse to roll a diminishing check, or even when you just refuse to roll a check on your turn. And that is usually that you take a forced critical failure. So if no PC is willing to talk to the princess, to the appropriate princess after losing points on the next check, you just automatically lose 2 points with that princess. And if Princess B gets below a certain threshold, she just like kind of panics and probably gives you away, even though that's the last thing that she wants to do. Whereas if Princess A gets past a certain threshold, she probably like gets really angry that her perfect wedding is getting ruined and ruins her own perfect wedding, which is also the last thing that she wants to do. So, let's talk about these awareness points. Now, they work exactly like awareness points do in Infiltration, except for that instead of being aware that there's infiltrators infiltrating the place, I guess maybe you are infiltrating it. I mean, the venue is in Kingdom A. So, it's basically people become aware that you're not just wedding planners. Kingdom A figures out, therefore, their war faction who are planning on disrupting the event and possibly killing some people find out. And also, Princess B just gets more and more upset as you're gaining awareness points because.
Which points? We have security. We have wedding and security points.
Yeah. So
Princess B gets when you lose security points.
Okay.
Or should we call them awareness points?
No, you know what? We could call them security points because maybe during the prep phase you build up wedding and security points because you could set up security measures like cast magical traps and other things.
Yes, you can decide how much you want to prioritize building wedding points and security points.
Yes, you're supposed to be stringing up like balloons, but you're actually putting up traps while you're doing that.
How much do you prioritize making the wedding like?
That can also determine which of the two princesses likes you more. So like also maybe if that's being the case, if we're allowed to split between how we gain them, that I think it's possible that the princesses could get upset. Like Princess A would probably be very upset if you literally didn't do any wedding planning during the wedding planning phase and you only did precautionary stuff because it would look like you weren't doing anything.
So maybe Princess A starts with a number of Princess A points that's equal to the number of wedding points you've gained at the end of the phase.
I mean, yeah, maybe Princess B starts with a number of her points based on the security that you've put in because, like, she calls the PCs in after the prep phase and, like, asks them to go over the security measures that they're taking. Like, heck, maybe Princess B is the one who hired you for the security because maybe she's, like, maybe she is the spy master of her own kingdom.
Oh, yeah.
That could also make it so there weren't as many NPCs to deal with. There's still spies that help you, but maybe Princess B runs her kingdom's spies, and she is the one who figured out about it. And so she is happy when you set things up, and you wind up starting with the same number of points of each.
But so you start with Princess A points equal to the number of wedding points you gained at the end of the prep phase, and start with the number of Princess B points equal to the number of security points you gained at the prep phase?
Yes. So obviously you're not going to you're very unlikely to lose the princess points faster than you lose the wedding points and the security points, because if you actually go and talk to the princesses, you have a decent chance to avoid losing them, but it is possible. Right? Like, if you always ignore them, then during the diminishing part, when you roll a regular failure and lose 1 wedding point, you'll lose 2 Princess A points if you don't go talk to her. So, it is possible to lose the princess points before you lose the their associated points. Now, if you wanted to simplify this, you could just get rid of the princess points at this point because they are similar to each other. And, Scott mentioned Princess BEE is running a sting operation.
Yes.
Which,
yeah, we could simplify it and say that if security reaches 0, Princess B reveals the truth, and if wedding reaches 0, then Princess A is really upset and the wedding is a failure.
Mm-hmm.
Should we do that?
I think that if security reaches 0, that actually something worse happens.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if Princess B, that makes sense. So if Princess B,
so I think that if Princess B reaches 0, then she like loses confidence in the PCs and gets really nervous, and that
she loses confidence in the PCs and has her own spies do an operation.
And this could cause some other complications, and also she probably is the one who's paying the PCs, so she's gonna get mad if she is their patron, after all. If Princess A gets to 0, then she just gets enraged at the PCs and tries to replace them with, like, her own royal wedding planners, who, unfortunately, of course, were infiltrated by, the pro-war faction. And so that's very bad. If the security reaches 0, then the pro-war faction figures out that the PCs are doing this, and they are able to throw an ambush, and get past the PC's precautions because your security is 0. And if wedding reaches 0, then the entire wedding is a disaster, and everyone says that it was, like, the worst wedding ever, and it ruins, all the nobles are, like, dissing the situation. It kind of ruins the whole situation. Now, and then just says the worst fate of all, the PCs don't get paid. Obviously, in almost any of these situations, the PCs are not going to get paid. Possibly the only one where they'll get paid, like, maybe is security 0, because if they can handle the situation. So I think that even if security points don't reach 0, what happens is that the pro-war faction tries to do their plan, but the PCs just get huge advantages. Like, they find out in advance, because of their security, based on how many points they still have left, what they find out, you give them as the GM details about, like, where the pro-war faction is going to strike and when and how many people they're going to bring in, and the PCs can just, like, lie in wait and even maybe cast preparatory spells depending on how many points they still have.
So if the PCs get to the end of the wedding without any of the point trackers hitting 0.
That's what happens if if the security points
hitting 0
don't hit 0.
Yeah, so
it's possible that if the wedding is ruined, the pro-war faction doesn't have to do anything.
Yeah, so get to the end of the wedding without any of then the wedding is a political failure, and the pro-war
faction doesn't have to cause a scene because you already screwed it up. It's as much as they could have hoped for. In fact, some of the complications that happen during the wedding may be small, minor incidents before their big thing that they do as a disruption when they see that you're too good. Are small things that the pro-war faction put in there. But weddings can cause enough problems on their own that I would say they probably aren't all like that.
Yes.
So basically, there are obstacles and complications in infiltrations. I think we have those too. So obstacles are things that we knew were going to be a problem at a wedding, like things that you always would have to deal with, and anything that was set up by the pro-war faction to screw us over. Complications were something that happens sometimes when a plan goes sour, maybe because you're losing security points to a certain degree, and
it could also be the wedding points falling below a certain degree could cause complications.
Yes, I think both points
fall,
but when they fall past certain threshold, maybe like every time you lose 5, for example, it causes a complication. And that there may be a few other complications that you make, like, a table of complications in advance that could happen, where, like, some weird side thing that is not one of your main obstacles, and then you throw those in at times that make sense during the situation. Also, there could be complications when the princess points go down too, that are caught, like Princess A, before she just fires you and tries to have her own people who are infiltrated by the bad guys do it. There could be things where she, like, she steps in or like does some other kind of smaller incident when you lose 5 points. So maybe every time you lose 5 points from one of the categories, there's a complication. Also, as typical for awareness points, the DCs of certain tasks probably go up as you're losing points from the princesses, or maybe what it is that depending on how many points you have in each category, the DCs could go down if you have a lot of them, because these are points that can go up and then go down. And if you have a small number, the DCs go up during the main wedding phase. During the prep phase, obviously it doesn't matter. You're just building up as many points as you can.
So the DC, I guess you probably would describe it though as the DCs going up as you lose points.
Well, sort of, but the problem is we don't know how many they started.
The DCs.
I think we would actually describe it as the DCs going down based on the amount that you have, because we know you started with 0 during the prep phase, right? And so we don't know how many you gained at the end of the prep phase, so we can't really describe it as the DCs going up by 1 for every 5 that we lost, because, well, if we started with a lot, we should have an easier time than if we started with only a few.
So we probably have a base, I guess you'd have a base DC for 1 point, because 1 point's the smallest you can have before every... No,
well, I mean, we could just
probably just say 0. It's easier to calculate.
We can just say that it's between 0 and like, something like between 0 and 4, between, like, once you have at least 5, then the DC goes down, or something like that. And we set it up so that, like, the maximum number of points that can be... Or, actually, it looks like in Infiltrations, it usually go... An example that's in here where you can earn... It requires each PC to earn 10 Infiltration points, and it looks like they have it 5 and 15 when the DCs adjust, so maybe that's what it is. Maybe... the DCs go down by 1 when you have at least 5 points in that category. They go down by 2 when you have at least 15 points in that category. Due to the fact that you have to build them up and then have them go back down, this is already going to have some amount of complication to it. And Nin the Noodle says Drunk Uncle could be one of the random things on the complication table. You might just keep rolling it. Beamer SRQ said Drunk Uncle would be both an obstacle and a complication.
Yes.
Nin said you would keep rolling it. That's what it was. And Nin the Noodle, yes, the Pro Wars faction's objective is to reduce the wedding points to 0. And if you're too good at the wedding for them to do that by small events, then they are planning on attacking the wedding.
Yes, and then how well their attack is based on how many security.
They've hired mercenaries who cannot be traced to them. Or at least normally cannot be traced to them, although if your security points are very high at the end, you might get so much intel that you also find evidence of the pro-war faction's actions. Like, there's probably thresholds at the end where it's like, security above X amount, you get everything for the fight, and you find evidence after the fight, after you ambush the mercenaries of the pro-war faction's shenanigans. And then, if you keep going down, you get some of the info for the fight, then you get less info for the fight, no info for the fight, and then if it's security's at 0, then they ambush you. And are able to bring in more people.
Yeah, if you reach the ending of the wedding without any of the points reaching 0, use security points to determine.
Security points will determine how much you know and how many mercenaries they're able to sneak into the wedding.
How much info the PCs have, how many mercenaries snuck into the wedding, and the favorability.
Yep. Of the security. Yeah, the favorability. Yeah. I see. Not like a person's favorability.
No, the favorability of the attack conditions.
Yes. So it'll be an easier fight for you. It could even be super easy if you have the most points. That's your reward, one of your rewards. So also, I'm assuming there are going to be other bonuses. Like if Princess A stays super psyched, then she'll be like, "These are the best wedding planners ever. I'm going to tell everyone in the kingdom that these are the best wedding planners," and then she throws extra money at you in addition to what you were already paid for things, and basically, like, talks you up. It's like, I never expected our wedding planners would defeat a group of mercenaries, because presumably, if you do it the best possible way, the guests never find out that there were mercenaries that were attacking, but like the Princess A does, and then she's like, "Wow, I didn't think our wedding planners could beat a giant mercenary thing, and without alerting the guests, like to keep the wedding from going badly. They're so good." And
so maybe both High Princess A points and High Princess B points result in bonus money at the end.
Yes, and they will like mention you to other people, and you could get other wedding planning gigs from Princess A or other like espionage gigs from Princess B. And if you have high wedding points, the higher the wedding points, basically, the better things go for the kingdom. Overall, the two kingdoms overall, this could have effects that ripple through the entire campaign if it's set in one or both of these two kingdoms, but it doesn't directly influence the PC's money situation, other than the fact that if you lost a lot of wedding points, then Princess A, you probably didn't keep as many Princess A points.
We don't need to double dip in that, but then, security points determine, okay, what happens with the combat. Wedding points determine the ramifications of the relationship between the kingdoms, which will make impact on the setting. Princess A and Princess B points determine how much money you get in the end.
Yes. So, and also, like, future employment and influence and prestige. If you're using, like, the system for reputation, your reputation probably goes up. I mean, heck, even the wedding points, your vague reputation as wedding planners among the nobles may go up by some. If you have reputation, they could all give you reputation. Yes, it's a double dip. I want to do one more thing, which actually Scott figured out by putting in chat about the drunk uncle, which is, what are some ideas people have for, like, some of the typical obstacles and complications of weddings? We're not going to build this entire thing out. We said we would make the system, not, like, iterate the system completely. However, let's give some examples, and then we can put what the skills would be that we think are based on that, just so people can get a sense if you want to actually build this. So, we have, the cake is a lie. So the complication, the cake is a lie, is that, presumably that your cake has been swapped out. So, like, you may think that that's just, like, silly to put a name like that, but it's fun sometimes to name the obstacles and complications with, like, an illusion like that. So, the cake is a lie could be the name of one where, like, the pro-war faction is going to try to cause issues by swapping out the cake that the PCs had planned for something that
it could be poisoned, or it could just taste terrible,
or just because it's easier to get this off, that they happen to know that someone prominent is allergic to. Because the PCs successfully did not make a cake that the person was allergic to, but but it's plausible that the PCs messed up and made a cake that was being allergic to. They're being allergic to it. Falcariana said there could be an assassin hidden in the cake. I thought of that at first, but I feel like that one is like maybe that is maybe a little like, that was my immediate instinct to the cake is a lie, but that's a little bit too escalating.
That would be a great way to say like what happens when you reach security 0 though. It's like when you reach security 0 and there's an ambush, like, did they burst out of the cake, or did they burst out of the cake?
I don't even think it was too goofy, Falcariana. I actually think it's hilarious because they sometimes put people into those giant cakes. I just think it may be too escalatory. Not in terms of goofiness, but in terms of, like, escalating the tension of the wedding into, like, an assassin. Like Linda said, that could be... If we did that, that would be something for 0, but it wouldn't let them fit a lot of people into it for the main ambush, so it would, it's tricky to use. I actually really like it, but it's tricky to use. Having the cake bees just switch for a plausible cake that maybe the PCs could have put in that was just a terrible choice because someone is allergic to it, an important person, one of the kings is allergic to it or something, is a possibility. And so then the PCs would want to roll a... what if we built a giant wooden badger? There you go. So, the PCs would probably want to roll a crafting or perception check to determine that the cake has been swapped. For a false cake. And then I think to overcome this obstacle, you actually need to get points in 2 different ways. Normally, obstacles just have one way to get it, and then there are multiple checks you can make. I think that you wind up, it's like a 2-stage obstacle. Stage 1 of the cake is a lie is figuring it out. And so that obstacle would be like...
That would be probably with the crafting and perception.
That's crafting and perception. That would be, we would call that one like inspecting the food. Crafting and perception. Then obstacle 2, the cake is a lie, is like, what do we do? And in that case, perhaps the pro faction couldn't completely dispose of the cake because it would be too obvious if they did. So you could either track down where they hid the cake and swap it back with a survival check, or roll a crafting check to quickly make another wedding cake with little time to go, in time to debut it, and make it look like the perfect, beautiful one that Princess A really wanted.
Making a cake that quickly would be troublesome. What about like a thievery check to give the person who has an allergy a piece of cake that is fine, or like some other thing? Crafting a cake immediately. I think you kind of got to track down the correct cake.
Maybe it's
so maybe it's about replacing the cake back with the original.
Let's see. So, could there be a... also, I guess if we had 2 different ways of solving it, that would be a problem, because PCs couldn't accumulate the points together, because your survival points to find the cake are irrelevant to the other person's craft points if they're going to replace the cake.
So
that's
maybe,
a good point.
Yeah, so maybe you just got to track down the correct cake.
Maybe you have to track down the correct cake, and you do that with survival, or... I don't want to do perception again.
Yeah.
But what else would it be?
Let's see.
Maybe it is perception. Like, that is a skill you would use to try to find a cake. Also, Ninja Slayer points out that baking lore could easily be used in the first stage, and that is correct. Scott says, what if we use diplomacy to try to pick up some clues from the other bakers that if they saw anything, or like the cooking staff, if they saw anything suspicious.
So survival or diplomacy,
that's great. That's great.
We have overly long speech.
Okay, so we have overly long speech. So that's a good one. So the overly long speech is the obstacle. Or possibly even a complication, whichever one we decide for it to be. In case you're wondering, Mark keeps saying obstacles and complication. What's the difference? Obstacles are things you set up in advance to be like, these are all things the PCs will have to deal with. I know what they are. They're going to have to deal with them in a particular order. They're going to happen at a certain time during the wedding. Complications are things you throw in on the fly. So, for example, they may also be timed. Like, this could be a complication that happens during the speech phase. But it could be that you planned for an overly long speech. It doesn't really matter for us which one it is here. They work pretty similarly. So, with this speech, the way that you're going to have to deal with it is you're going to have to figure out how to, like, get them to stop. But it's probably someone really important who's giving the overly long speech. In fact, if you want to make it... if you want to make it really, this one a particularly interesting obstacle, it could be that Princess A is giving a really long speech at her own wedding. Because she's just so excited. And it's extemporaneous. She gets up and just is emotionally giving a speech, and it's really long and gushy. So in that case, the trick about this one is that you also are at risk of losing Princess A points for this. But, very importantly, as a special rule, if you just shut up and let her, and take the critical failure on the wedding and lose 2 wedding points, normally when you lose wedding points, Princess A gets upset, but this time she does not. If you just don't do anything and let her talk, she will not get upset for the lost wedding points, because it was her, she wanted to give her speech. But in this case, you would probably roll diplomacy or society.
Yes.
To find polite ways to also, like, subtly steer her. Because if it's not Princess A, if it's just, like, some rando, you might also be able to use intimidation to glare at them and get them to stop. But with Princess A, you're going to have to use society or
so
diplomacy.
what about for the sort of the glare idea? You could have another one that was like embarrassing from speech based. It's like embarrassing anecdotes that like someone is bringing up stories that are like going to cause upset about like, well, I remember when Princess B was a small child. This is like,
So maybe with the embarrassing anecdotes, you use either society to like hold your fan up to your mouth and then say something gossipy about that person that gets them to be embarrassed and shut up, or intimidation to glare at them. What do you think?
Yes.
Oh, I remember when this speech person was doing this other thing. So that could be society or intimidation, perhaps. So let's see, what else do we have here? So
there was I saw the fire thing.
So there was also literally drunk uncle.
Yes, I got drunk uncle.
So drunk uncle would probably be medicine to like dose the uncle with something that could help out, or like deception to be like, okay, uncle, okay, it's over there's something, like kind of trick drunk uncle into like not causing a scene. So I saw Ring Boy has wandered off. So, with Ring Boy has wandered off, what would that be?
So we need to, like... This seems like it could... survival and diplomacy, again, seem like they could be the types of things
where you track down or talk to people. I think that could work, too. And then, 2 people said rain on wedding day. So
I think that this rain isn't natural in origin.
That's
true. I think it's magical rain.
It's magical rain that was conjured using let's say it was conjured using a spell that used water spells usually have the matter essence, so probably nature or arcana to figure out how to counteract the magical rain. Rain Boy wanders off survival to walk into Mordor.
Yes. Then I saw Fallen Candle. Candle tips over, starting a fire. Whether this is an accident or probably not an accident, honestly, given the situation.
Probably not. So, in that case, let's see. What skills would we use to help deal with a fire situation? Fires are different every time.
Maybe it's like survival to know about putting out fires, or like thievery to like quickly snatch away the flaming tablecloth.
The tablecloth so fast that I've seen thievery to pull a tablecloth such that the things on top of it don't like tip over and crash. So yeah, I think so. Also, just like surprisingly, survival is really good in this high class noble party.
Yeah.
I like it because most people would think that the druid and the ranger would be like, what are they even gonna do?
Looking at the skills here, there's probably something with what about for performance? There might be something about like the
something happens to one of the performers. There's a mishap with one of the performers due to shenanigans from the pro-war faction. So yeah, absolutely. So you either need to roll performance to assist with the performance yourself, or diplomacy to convince maybe one of the nobles in like the royal family is actually really good at like maybe one of the princess's little brother is really good at playing a musical instrument but is really embarrassed, and you try to psych him up into helping too. Scott said survival makes sense because I've had to survive sitting through multiple weddings.
Let's go back to the skills again. I want to see which skills we haven't used yet.
What skills have we not? I wanted to make sure we got everybody's thing. I think Ninja Slayer, we have one more, which is evidence from the spies shows that at least one of the alcohols is poison, but it is unknown which one. So that would be medicine or crafting to deduce which alcohol is poisoned. So the one we haven't done yet, athletics and acrobatics, are ones we haven't done yet.
Okay.
Other than athletics and acrobatics, occultism and religion.
What about like if if like collapsing arch, like one of the archways overhead is gonna like collapse onto the guests, and you have to
either athletics to brace the arch up, or crafting to reinforce it.
Yeah.
Because you don't want it to fall. Acrobatics could let you get out of the way, but it's already a problem if it falls.
So I was thinking that was my athletics thought, is something's collapsing.
Oh yeah, we also don't have stealth, but like that's gonna be a tough one because anytime that now hold on, a lot of these
stealth?
hold on, a lot of these are obstacles towards the wedding failing. We should have some obstacles towards the fact that you that are like going towards our security points.
Yeah, so stealth I think could be something about like, you know, some of the pro-war people seem to have caught up. Pro-war people have noticed you in a compromising position.
That's a complication, and you need to use either deception or stealth to avoid losing your points. Yes. So also losing security could happen a lot in complications. Also,
like poisoned alcohol.
Also, one of the obstacles could be just that like you're chasing down. So we have the compromising position for a complication with stealth or deception. But another one of the obstacles could be you're chasing down a pro-war person. You don't know exactly what they're going to do, but that you know that they're probably going to do something. And so the obstacle is like shadowing the instigator, and that would be an obstacle that uses stealth in order to just stay close and not be seen,
or deception to blend in,
or deception to like seem to act natural. Same as the complication to avoid problems if you do get caught. So another one we could have is that maybe the pro-war faction like drugged the priest right before an important prayer ceremony. So
is that an obstacle or complication?
That would be an obstacle.
Yeah, I thought so. Something like
and so the PCs need to roll religion and society to like set one of the PCs up to do the ceremony. Now this is one where it's really important because you wouldn't want to, like, the PCs can't just have a fake priest. It's actually important for the wedding. So you would only want to do this if the PCs have a divine caster who's actually a priest. Otherwise, you would change it slightly so they use religion and society to help, like, maybe a newer priest who is ordained but just doesn't know how to do this ceremony, to help, like, prep that priest to do the ceremony, because the original priest who knew how to do the ceremony is out there. But it's cooler if the PC does it if you actually have a priest in the party, because also then you get credits. Like, I did a wedding for, like, these two kingdoms.
Oh, doing weapon checks without making people uncomfortable or anxious. That's a good one.
And doing weapon and without letting it be obvious that you are you're secretly doing extra security because you know about what's going on. So that would probably
be thievery.
I think that's
thievery and deception, maybe.
Thievery and deception for the weapon checks. Yeah.
Because thievery is like
you're kind of secretly doing very heavy weapon checks, because normally you would trust the nobles to have peace knotted their weapons when you just kind of look and see the peace knot, but you're checking to make sure they're not fake peace knots, which is impolite for someone to do and would kind of give you away. Falco Rhiannon says, I could officiate your wedding. I'm a priest of Zon Kuthon. And Ninja Slayer said, a cleric of Groatus officiate. Oh boy. So let me go back and see, and yes, alcohol is definitely the perfect drink to poison because alcohol is poisonous itself. In fact, that was, I think that was a plot point in one of the Jade Regent adventures where Detect Poison was not necessarily going to notice that the ninjas had poisoned alcohol. And it's something I made sure to make it even more explicit in the Detect Poison spell in PF2. Because I was like, that's a really good point, Adventure Path. But I think some GMs don't think about the fact that it's great to poison alcohol. So you can't just solve it with Detect Poison in that case. Let's see.
So have we included all of the skills at this point?
We have included all the skills at least once. There's an idea that while you've set up your own traps for the pro-war faction, if your security doesn't get breached, that they try to set up a magical glyph that's going to explode
Maybe
And
that's a complication. Because
that
like
could be a
if you have
complication.
more problems that were coming up along the way.
Yeah,
then
maybe
that...
they got a opportunity and they set up a magical glyph. And so then that you need Arcana or Thievery to disable it. So you might be thinking, Mark and Linda, there's actually not a lot of diplomacies in this wedding, but there actually are, because Princess A and Princess B, when you're trying to convince them that everything's fine, you always roll diplomacy or deception on. So you roll diplomacy or deception on Princess A, and you're gonna roll diplomacy or probably like, I don't know, like what is the skill that the spy background gives? Is it like spy lore? Or is there a spy background or something like that? No, I guess there is not a spy background. But you would probably roll diplomacy or some related lore for Princess B. I'm not sure any of the other skills, because you don't really want to lie to the Princess B. She's gonna figure it out. You are kind of pulling the wool over the eyes of Princess A, so diplomacy or deception would work.
So I can just say roll diplomacy or relevant lore.
Or relevant lore for Princess B, because she knows that you messed up. With Princess A, you might be able to convince her, oh yes, it was just, we got this, our priest is actually an even better priest than you think. It's like, yeah, but you critically failed the thing. It's like, ah yes, it was just an unknown prayer that was, we gave a prayer that was from neither Kingdom A nor Kingdom B instead of the traditional Kingdom A one, because we thought that it would
better symbolize the unity.
Yes, it would better symbolize the unity, and it would make your beautiful bride more comfortable. And it's like, oh yes, I really love Princess B, so you did well, strange.
There was a suggestion that thievery could also be involved in reassuring the Princess B.
I was thinking about that, but I just wasn't sure if like doing a thievery would be enough after failing something else. But it is a good choice. It's a solid choice. I even in my head thought of it and then kind of was like, but would that be able to assuage her on its own? Like if the party just all rolled thievery, so we could consider having thievery in there as well.
So maybe the GM could also allow thievery where relevant. Because that could also demonstrate, oh yeah, I have a way to...
Nin says thievery to pull the wool over Princess A's eyes. No, sorry, that is deception when you pull the wool over someone's eyes, unless you literally have wool.
Yep.
And you're gonna pull it over their eyes. Like the old material component for Silent Image was wool, because you pull the wool over people's eyes. All right.
Man, I have like 1,000 words of notes on this.
Okay, so we did it. We have 1,000 words of notes in a little over an hour for this. We've built a victory point subsystem. If you actually build it, you would count how many points you want to give. You would just choose a certain number of these obstacles and complications. We would actually pick what sort of mercenaries are going to attack us, depending on the situations, give names to the princesses, etc. As you can see, we were able to build not just any victory point subsystem, but one that was needlessly complicated compared to the normal victory point subsystem rules, all just on the fly based on just what you guys typed in chat. That shows the power and flexibility of the victory point subsystem. And you might say, well, no, it just shows that Linda has done hundreds of these victory point subsystems and can therefore... Linda is good at it, but maybe it's not easy enough for me to make one. And I mean, that might be true, but I'd say try it yourself, and you'll see that it actually really encourages you to do things. Everyone agrees with weddings being needlessly complicated. That's true. That is kind of what weddings are.
All right. In 4 different chats, because it had to be split up lots of times, I posted it in the workshops channel.
We have put it onto tiny.cc/rkmark.
All right.
Okay,
let's say goodbye to YouTube and then
pick our next episode. Bye, YouTube. See you next time.
Bye.